Well, the world has still gone nutty, buddy, even downright cruddy, buddy. Wish I missed the past, buddy, but there's still Buddycast. No, don't be naughty, go meet buddy, here on Buddycast.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and host of Buddycast, Nick Sorensen.
Can you tell me how to get to Buddycast? Welcome everyone to another episode of everybody's favorite show, Buddycast. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen, and joining me today is a very special buddy, my buddy puppeteer, Bradley Freeman. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm great, buddy. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for coming on the show.
You're so welcome.
I'm glad we finally got to do this episode. I know last time you were miles and miles in the air when we were.
Yeah, it was a couple miles high, literally, not figuratively. I was actually in the sky.
Yeah.
And I just didn't have the Wi-Fi to do it. But I'm so glad that I actually got to do it. I'm so glad that we can make this happen.
We're glad to have you on the show. So, buddy, I got to start by asking, what sparked your interest in becoming a puppeteer?
Gosh. So I always loved anything that was practical. I loved anything that was practical and real that was on my screen. I was such a huge fan of watching television, and the things that I loved to watch were, I loved watching the Muppets. I loved watching Barney. I loved watching Sesame Street. I loved watching The Webulous World of Dr. Seuss, Ubi, anything that involved like real things that were on the screen that I could, see and were tangible and that looked like I could touch them and hold them and shake their hand, were just, I couldn't get enough of it. And it was sort of from there that I just decided, like, I had a specific interest, and I started buying, DVDs like the Muppet Show season 1 I had on DVD, and I had some controversial movies like Kermit Swamp Years and like Muppets Wizard of Oz that I had on DVD, but I used to watch them all the time, and I would watch the bonus features, and it was in watching the bonus features that I saw how it was all done, and it just made my decision for me. It was sort of, I don't know, somehow I knew, like, this is what I'm gonna do. It wasn't really like, oh, those guys are doing it, now I know that I want to do this. It was just like, yeah, that's just what I want to do. They're doing it. I'm gonna learn how to do it so that I can do it too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. I love how you were just into it the whole time. Like it wasn't just like, no, it's just the Muppet. It's like, I want to learn from these guys. I want to see what they're doing.
Yeah. It was very much, I mean, that's part of what I loved about, season 1 of the Muppet Show, is you can see all the dirty bits. You can see their heads pop up on the bottom of frame sometimes. You could see the sleeves. You could see Fozzie's arm sleeves. You could see things go wrong. You could see faces if you paused at the right time. And I got a clue. I got a clue as to how it was done. And it was one of those things that there's a magic to watching it the way that it's supposed to be presented. And there's also a magic to how it's done under the frame, below the frame. There's a magic to both sides of it, and that's part of what I think makes puppetry so incredible. Is no matter what angle you're viewing it from, it's magical.
So how long did it take you to, I know you're still mastering the art today and everything like that, because you're always mastering the art, but how long did it take you to really get to where you are today, like to really get that with puppetry?
I started when I was 5, and it took until today to get to where I am today. But it took me like a long time to feel like comfortable. I started practicing as much as I could with, like store-bought puppets. I had this one puppet that was it was just a dog head. It was this cute little head of a dog that I got from my local grocery store here in Texas, HEB, and I would play with it all the time, and that's pretty much how I learned how to do lip sync, was on that puppet. And I found my dad had gotten me for my birthday one year a camera, and I found a some cords and an old TV, and I was able to connect the cords and have my own makeshift monitor situation where I have the camera up high, the monitor down low, and I'm able to watch what I'm doing as a puppeteer, so that I could learn, and I would basically just lip sync along to the Muppet Show as I was watching it. And it was that over the years, and then of course doing it through elementary school, and doing it through middle school, and doing it through high school was where it sort of like I just never stopped. And I think that's the thing with a lot of puppeteers, is they never stop. And so that's where the practice comes in, and still today, like there are still things that I watch that I did a year ago that I'm like, I'm just not there yet. I need to practice that more. There's things that I watched that I did a week ago that I'm just like, that's not, that could be so much better. It's never ending. But for some reason, Sesame Street liked what I can do with puppetry, and they accepted me into it. And so I've just been continuing to improve it as much as I can, so that they don't realize that I don't actually know what I'm doing.
And that brings me to my next question. How did you find the opportunity with Sesame Street and the Muppets?
Yeah. Okay. So I did it was back in 2018. There was a Sesame Puppeteer workshop. And you just had Brandon on, and that's where him and I met. We did that workshop. It was 3 days. I met some of my closest friends there, and got to work with Matt Vogel for the first time, and Marty Robinson, Stephanie DeBruzzo, Peter Linz, Leslie Carrara Rudolph. I think that was everyone who was there. And it was just this most magical 3 days. I mean, being like a puppeteer for a long time and a lifelong Sesame Street fan, to be in the room with, Telly and Ernie and Big Bird and the Count and Fairy Dawn, just like, it was incredible. It was just so incredible to see. And so, and just to be a part of. And what did that, and then I was so just proud. I was like, I did it. If nothing else comes of this, I did it. Like, I made it there. They saw me. My puppetry is at least to the standard of them saying you have potential. I'm like, how could I ask for anything more? That's just the best. And so then a couple years passed, and I pretty much realized, like, I think they forgot about me, and that's okay. I think, I was on their list, and I didn't really keep in touch as much as I should have, and I was like, that's okay. And I was like, let me just work on like a puppetry demo reel, and start keeping in touch with Martin Robinson, because I had his email. So I kept in touch with Marty for a little bit, and then after about a year or so, I sent him. This was over COVID. I finally had time to make myself a puppetry demo reel, which I'd never made before. And so I went ahead and sent him my reel, and I said, hey, if you could just watch this and tell me what's wrong with it, if I need to add more emotion, if it needs to be less singing, does it need to be shorter? Like, what do you want to see from this? And he said, hey, this is a great reel. I'm going to send it over to Matt Vogel. I was like, oh gosh, okay, no, that's not what I wanted. I just wanted you to tell me what was wrong with it. And he was like, hey, Matt loved your reel as well. Where do you live again? And I'm like, I live anywhere you want me to live, Mr. Robinson. I don't know. And so then it started this whole conversation, and one thing led to another. He said, the producers will be in contact with you shortly about an audition that we're having. It's like, oh my goodness, that's whoa. And they contacted me about the opportunity to audition for 2 brand new characters they were bringing to Sesame, called Wes and Elijah. Wes was a 5-year-old boy, and Elijah was his father, or is his father. And so I panicked and got so excited, and I just was so thankful. And I made a reel, or not a reel. I made like the video that they were asking for, sort of just demonstrating my puppeteering skills. And then I made a video sort of with the script that they sent in. And then there was a live audition live over Zoom. And gosh, that was like extremely nerve-wracking. But I went in, I knew the script, I did everything that I could, and it was done, and I was just like, oh, I can't believe I just auditioned for Sesame Street. I'm like, once again, if nothing comes of this, I've made it this far. Like they thought I was good enough to try me out and ask me to audition, and I got to audition with people who I've known for a long time and looked up to for a long time, and that's you know to be in the same playing field as some of these people is just so wild. And I a couple weeks later, I heard back from the producers, from Bryce, and she said, "Hey, you got the part." And I was like, "Whoa!" So I got the part of Wes, and Wes is a 5-year-old boy who lives on Sesame Street. He's the cutest little puppet, and I love him. He's fantastic. And from that moment on, my life was completely changed. From there, I started going to New York at least once a month to shoot Sesame content, and started to become even closer with Marty Robinson. Started working with people like Ryan Dillon. Started working closely with people like Carmen Osbar, people, Matt Vogel, Eric Jacobson, all these people, because just Wes was being used a little more and more and more. And then it was, I think was it the summer of 2021? Yeah, it was. Matt Vogel asked if I was available to help with an event for the Muppets in Brooklyn, and I was like, "Ooh, this is crazy." And so I was available, and it was me, and it was supposed to be Kermit and Piggy, but Matt had COVID. He ended up getting COVID shortly before that. He's fine now. But he got, and so it was just Miss Piggy, and I was assigned to help assist Miss Piggy, and that's what I did. And that was my first Muppet gig I'd ever done. It was incredible. I already knew Eric, so I was pretty comfortable. It was just so like now I'm in this other world, and I had gotten my first ever paycheck from Disney. It's like, whoa, that's wild. And then I was asked to do The View to help promote Muppets Haunted Mansion. So it was Kermit and Piggy on The View, and I was again assisting Miss Piggy. And then we did another thing with the Muppets that hasn't come out yet, and so I'll talk about that whenever that's released. And then it's still out. We recorded that very early, and so did that. And then I became close enough with some of the producers and with Matt and with Eric and everybody, and I was asked to help on the new Muppets Mayhem show. And so I've been working on that for on and off for the last several months, and we just wrapped last week. It was incredible, and we're looking forward to when it comes out, and hopefully we can get a season 2. And I'm just so thankful that I get to be a part of these 2 incredible franchises that like not only these characters, but these people are the reason that I'm doing what I do, because they inspired me. And now they're the reason I do what I do, because they advocated for me. And they said, we want this person to be doing this and to be helping. And so I've been incredibly lucky to get these opportunities. And yeah, that's the long version, I guess, of how I made it to Sesame Street and to the Muppets.
We love long stories on Buddycast, so don't even worry about it.
We've got plenty.
Yep. We had Larry Thomas on here, who's the soup Nazi on Seinfeld. His first answer took 20 minutes. So
oh, really?
Yeah. And he answered 4 of my questions in one. So
oh, that's fantastic.
Yep. So you mentioned characters.
I'm in good company.
Yep. You mentioned characters that you played, like Wes, Miss Piggy. How can you relate to them? Like, how do you relate to Wes?
So Wes, I was very lucky in that I got to create a lot of his personality, since I originated that character. And that was very special, because I really I was so excited to be there. And so I decided to bring that into the character. And so Wes is just this fireball of energy, and as you see different Wes videos come out, you see that he gets a little bit more hyper and more defined as things go on. So he's really just like, he's the kid that I always wanted to be. He's endlessly curious. He's really not shy. He has so many friends. Everyone thinks he's so cool, or he just feels so comfortable in his own skin. And it's not that I never felt that way, but I wanted to feel that way a lot more than I did when I was a kid. Growing up a puppeteer can sometimes, it puts you in a place where it's like, oh, this is, I don't know, I feel like people are looking at me funny because I like to do this sort of thing. And then there's other times where being a puppeteer is completely anonymous and I do feel comfortable. So that was, yeah, with Wes, that was like, that's pretty much him. Is he's the 5-year-old that I really wanted to be. He's the kid that I always wanted to be. And then Miss Piggy, I don't play Miss Piggy, I have assisted her, and I'm usually just her right hand. So if she does this, it's me doing the other hand. And so, you know what? I've never thought about ways that I relate to Miss Piggy. I'm not sure there are many ways in which I relate to Miss Piggy. Her and I are two different people, and you know what? I could say the same about Eric, who plays Miss Piggy. He is just such an awesome, sweet, relatively shy, quiet person. And if I were a teacher and he came into the parent-teacher conference, I would never believe that he said that this was his job, ever, in a million years. Even watching him do it sometimes, I just don't believe it. It's the dichotomy between him and his characters is incredible.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And what about some other co-stars of yours? Like, what about some other puppeteers you mentioned? Like, how do you see them relating to their characters, or like being, or like you said, being the total opposite,
Right. What a fun question. Who else has like shocked me? There are some people that it's like you can see the character as a very obvious extension of who they are. People like, Dave Goles and Gonzo, or like Carmen Osbar and Rosita. It's just right there. It's right there. You see that they're just like, this is the version of them that's like comfortable and ready to take chances and be loud and have fun with their friends. And then you see people who are quiet and shy and don't really ever say much, and sort of like, not that they're like weird recluses that sort of like sit in the corner of the room, but they're just like these unassuming people. David Rudman would be another example of someone who's like, you would never guess talking to him, and just like you guess that he's a very smart, capable, and efficient person, but you never guess that he's Cookie Monster. Like that loud, beautiful, deep voice, that iconic voice coming out of him. It seems out of place a little bit because he's just so, I don't know, just unassuming, just a regular person. And him and I were talking about stuff because I was telling him the story about when I was younger, in the back of the car on the way to school. I would sit when I was little. I would sit in the back of the car and I would go like for as long as I could without coughing, because I was like, oh, man, Sesame Street is never going to hire me if I can't do a Cookie Monster impression. And so I was like, oh, I need to do it. And I would go just as long as I could. And I got to a point where I had like some stamina. And so we were talking about, doing the voice and sustaining it, and how long can you even do it? And he's talking to me, and he's just sort of like, yeah. And so when I go, I'm like this, and then I come down here, and then he just like goes into the Cookie Monster voice. And it's so funny because he's been doing it for 20 something years now. And automatically when he goes down into the Cookie Monster voice, he starts to say me instead of my. And so we're having the conversation, and he starts switching up the grammar, being like, and so yeah, I use my voice here, and then when me go down here, me actually feel very. And I was like, I don't know if you realize that you're doing this, but it's just like his brain automatically switches the grammar once he's in that mode, because he just turns into Cookie Monster. He's been doing it for so long. And so that's another person that it's like you'd never know, you'd never think it, you'd never assume it. He's just a regular old guy, and then he puts on Cookie Monster and turns into a whole other being.
Hmm.
It's so much fun to see that happen with puppeteers, that they just transform into different people.
I was about to say, it seems like, outside world, they're themselves.
Yeah,
You're Bradley Freeman. But like once you walk into the studio, your mind switches to, I am now Wes. I am,
yeah,
Bradley does this, but Wes does that.
yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, yes. That's part of the beauty of the Muppets over, like, because the Muppets are not just impressions or like silly voices. You really do become the character. And I was just talking to somebody about this, the idea that, like, some people say, "Oh, I do a really good Donald Duck," right? But you
Hmm.
don't, most of the time when people say that, it means that they do a pretty decent impression of Donald Duck, maybe doing like a yawn or a sneeze or whatever. Because I can do like a, like I can do that, but I can't actually speak like Donald Duck. You know what I mean? Like I can't say any intelligible words. I can't sing like Donald Duck. I can't read a script or emote as Donald Duck like Tony Anselmo can do. And that's why he's Donald Duck, because he's the only one who can do it that well. He has it down. He sounds wonderful. Oh, he's one of very few. I think there's been a couple people who
Hmm.
fill in here and there, but not everybody, very few people can actually use that voice and sing. There is an album with like Mickey and the Palace singing the classics, and it's
Hmm.
all of the Mickey Fab Five. It's Mickey, Donald, Goofy, and Minnie. Maybe Daisy.
Hmm.
I don't remember if I heard her voice on that one. But there's one song that Donald sings by himself, and I think it's like one for my baby and one for the road. And it's Donald singing it, and you wouldn't expect him to sound good, but it's like it's so cute and pure that it can bring you to tears. You know what I mean? There's something about it. And I sure as heck can't do that. And so that's the thing about the Muppets, is it's not like a, like you're saying, like once we're in the character, we're in the character. And that's the beauty of the Muppets. We're not doing impressions of these characters, whether we've originated the characters or we're taking over from somebody, because that can be a whole thing, as if you're taking over for another person. The point is not to do an impression of that previous person, of the previous performer. The point is to be as true to the character as you can, to become the character and not be thinking about, do I sound just like I don't know, who's it, Fozzie Bear? Do I sound just like Frank did? Do I sound just like Jim did? Do I sound just like Richard did? You're just thinking about, is this what Scooter sounds like? Is this what Scooter would do? And you just become the character. And so yeah, once I have Wes on and he's up in the air, it's me, and I just need to talk like Wes, and then we do the thing, and I improv like Wes, and we have fun, and he gets me excited, and I feel the excitement, and I feel the fun. And Tamir, it's a very similar thing. It's like he's a whole other character, and he's a bit more awkward, and he's a bit more hesitant, and so he's a bit more like, yeah, okay, like I don't know if I don't know if I belong here, but I'm happy that you guys have me here, and so I'll just be around. I'll be here in the back. You need help? Okay, you're good. He's a bit more, tentative. He's more the me that I actually am in real life, as opposed to Wes, who's just like who I want to be. And so yeah, that's part of the importance and the beauty of these characters, is we become the characters. We inhabit the characters. We think like the characters. Between takes, we improv as the characters. They are real. I mean, they're very, very real. And
Beautiful.
yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible.
Number one, those voices were beautiful. Number two, that's such an amazing story. How you mentioned everyone, like this guy is this guy's that, but once they become the character, like the Cookie Monster, once it
Yeah,
become, and it's like it becomes, it's not just something like I gotta memorize these lines. It's like, whenever
yeah,
he goes down, like the story of the Cookie Monster, going from when he lowers his voice, all of a sudden, my goes to me, you
yeah,
know.
exactly. Yeah, it's an automatic switch, because these characters are always sort of living in our minds,
Hmm.
and so we get to channel them. And it sounds, very actory, but it's true.
Hmm.
There's one thing I remember, and this just happened on set for the Muppets, and Eric, who plays Animal, he's sitting behind the drum set, and he just sort of has Animal there. and Bill Beretta, who plays Dr. Teeth, sometimes will just like talk to Animal, not Eric, but he'll talk to Animal, and so he's like, "Hey, Animal, Animal, how you doing? How you doing?" Animal, okay, and then he'll just like talk as Animal. He's like, "You want some ice cream? You want some ice cream? Ice cream? Yeah, you want butterscotch ice cream? Butterscotch." And he can't even talk. Like Animal just doesn't. He talks like a weirdo. But he can't say butterscotch. Butterscotch, and he just like does that, and he just is real. And I'm watching this happen, and we're treating it like it's real. And because he is, I mean, he just becomes real. You suspend your disbelief because I believe in the character. Eric believes in the character. Bill believes in the character. So then why not, and what you hear me doing is just a really bad impression of all of these characters because I am not Animal. I don't inhabit that. I don't know that character nearly as well as Eric does. I don't know any of the characters that I don't play nearly as well as their performers do. And I never could.
You're not Animal, you're not Dr. Teeth, but you are Wes,
But yes.
You are Wes. So that brings me to my next question. When you're preparing to be Wes, when you're going into the studio going, I am Wes, what are the elements that you're putting in? What's going through your mind? How do you truly prepare for the next episode?
At first it was a bit more of that almost a mantra type thing, and preparing myself before I walked into the studio, and preparing myself and just making sure that I'm like reading the lines properly and getting everything right. It was more of a process. And now that I've been playing him for a little while longer, and I've just grown more comfortable with him, and I've had the opportunity to play, it's changed. It's changed in that, like, I don't have to be prepared at all. I mean, not prepared at all, but I don't have to like mentally work myself up to get there. It's just like, once I'm in there and I sit down, I'm in my seat, we do a quick little read through of the script that's going to go on. And then I put the puppet on and bring Wes up, and maybe I'll do like a couple bounces, like the way that sort of, we as people will do warm-ups like this. I'll maybe have Wes do like a couple things and then just get his energy up, and I see that, and then I start to feel it, and then I just feel like, and so with Wes, the elements that I usually involve it's just excitement. It sort of starts with a base of happiness and excitement. That's where he comes from. He's real happy to be where he is. He's really excited, and he's really comfortable no matter the situation. He always tries his best to be comfortable and just have fun, and everyone is just a new friend that he's excited to meet and he's excited to hang out with. That's just who people are to him, and he's excited to meet you. He doesn't care who you are. He doesn't judge who you are. And he's not here to make anybody's day any worse. He's only here to help you make your day as good as he can possibly make it. And so, but it all starts with a base level of excitement. And so it's so much easier, now most of us can just like walk into the studio, even if we're not really having a good day. These characters can usually help transport us into a good, happy, healthy mental place. That
is awesome. And how did you develop the voice?
For Wes, it was really simple. It's sort of just, there was like concept art for the character, and originally, and he still does this sometimes, but originally he was meant to be delivering a lot more emotional and like heartfelt material. And so I knew I needed to pick a voice that worked for the character, but was also really simple and not obnoxious at all, and could really, drive points home, but was also versatile and could get excited when he needed to, and sounded as much like a Muppet as I could make him sound like, while still keeping him grounded and making him a real kid. And so legitimately, it's just like, I took my voice and compressed it and compressed it and compressed it and brought it pretty much up here, and then just decided, okay, well, that's it. And so now the only thing about it, his voice is a lot louder than mine usually is. So he'll be up here most of the time and be like, "Oh, hi everyone! No, it's great to see you. I'm really glad to be here." And if he gets sad, but he gets a bit more whispery, and it's okay. But then he gets really excited, and he can go like really, really high. So trying to keep like some Muppety things in there while also just having his voice be something that's regular, and it's just my voice, but like squished
Mhm.
into like a little voice. Yeah,
That is awesome. Now, buddy, don't go anywhere. I got to play a quick ad from our sponsors, Harbor Ridge Golf Course. So
you got it.
we'll be right back. This Buddycast is brought to you by Harbor Ridge Golf Course. If you're in the Erie area looking to play a quick nine, sharpen your skills on the putting green or driving range, or looking to play playing golf while having some quality time with buddies, head over to Harbor Ridge at 3730 Harbor Ridge Trail. When you're finished, head over to the Harbor View Grill to enjoy a good meal, some live music, a gorgeous view of Lake Erie, and some more good times. Call them today at 814-898-4653. Tell my buddy Adam that Buddy sent you. And that was our buddies from Harbor Ridge Golf Course. Do you play golf at all, Ed?
I've played mini golf, and I'm not good at it.
I always say if the point of golf was to get the ball in the hole with as many strokes as humanly possible, I'd be on the PGA right now.
Yep. You call me Tiger Woods because I
But
could.
at the same time, if you're ever in the Erie area, please stop on down. I'll treat you to a nice meal at the Harbor View Grill. It's got one
I
of
would
the
love
most
to.
beautiful views of Lake Erie with a sunset that you'll never forget. So,
I'd love to. That sounds marvelous.
Now, buddy, you mentioned earlier you grew up watching Sesame Street, watching the Muppets. I got to first start by asking, who are some of your favorite characters?
Immediately my mind goes to Ernie. Ernie was I was always so excited to see Ernie. Always. I know that Elmo was a favorite for a long time. So between Elmo and Ernie as a kid, yeah, there was Elmo and Ernie. And then now that I've grown up, it's evolved to being Big Bird. I think there's something so magical about Big Bird because he can exist anywhere. He's real. He's really big, and he walks around. You can look at him from any angle, and he's really there. As far as Muppets go, I would say, I mean, obviously Kermit. Kermit's a huge favorite of mine. Scooter. I'm looking at a poster that I have. That's what just like to remind me of the Muppets. Scooter was definitely one of my favorites, and then who else? Zoot. Zoot in the Electric Mayhem, he plays the saxophone. He was one of my favorites as well. But I just Ernie, as far as all of the Muppets go, was by far my favorite, and he's still one of my favorites today. Whenever he's around or on set or whatever, it's a good day.
Nice. And you mentioned a lot of puppeteers earlier. Have you ever met some of the originals? Like, have you ever met like Carol Spinney or Frank Oz? Any of those that have actually that brought all these characters to life? That kind of paved the way.
Yeah, I did get to meet Carol Spinney one time at a Comic-Con. This was, I wish I remember what year. I think it was in 2018, and he was, not really able to speak at that time, but I was able to tell him that I was a puppeteer, and that I got to do the Sesame workshop, and his eyes sort of lit up, and he gave me a bird feather that he had. And so I still have that big bird feather, and he signed my book, and it's up on my bookshelf now. There was a magical moment. I got to meet Steve Whitmire, who I looked up to for a very, very long time. He was at the table next to Carol. And so Steve and I had some nice conversations, and he invited me to the Muppets panel, or to the Sesame Street panel that was happening the very next day. And he made sure that I was there, and he was very excited. And I gave him a drawing that I made of him. I gave Steve a drawing that I made of him, and I printed it out, and he really liked it, and he asked me to sign the back of it, and that since maybe about a week after that, that drawing has been his profile picture on Instagram since that day. So if you look him up on Instagram, his profile picture is the drawing that I made of him and gave to him at that con. I also have had the amazing pleasure to become good friends with Marty Robinson. and he's been I think he's now the longest tenured Sesame Muppet performer, working with Sesame Street, since it was him and Carol, and then Carol passed away and it became Marty. And so it's been a huge honor. He worked with, he did get to work with Jim and Frank and everybody while they were around Richard, and got into fights with Richard, all sorts of stuff, like just Jerry Nelson, all of these people that, I never got the opportunity to meet. And then most recently, I got to work with Dave Goelz, who, of course, original Muppeteer on The Muppet Show. I have adored Dave Goelz for such a long time, and the fact that I actually got to work with him and assist him with his character, and we had such a beautiful bonding moment over understanding, like, because Zoot was already one of my favorite Muppets, and the fact that I got to help him with Zoot, and we figured out some cool stuff that you'll see in the show. It was very fun. And we had some very nice bonding. And then he gave me a ride back to my hotel, which was very sweet of him. So yeah, I've gotten the opportunity to work with so many incredible people that have influenced me in my life. And one of the incredible things has been the fact that none of them have ever let me down, in terms of, like, they are just as sweet and giving and generous, if not sweeter or more giving and more generous than I ever thought they could be. So I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful and so lucky that I've gotten to work with these people, and that all of my heroes and people that I've looked up to have been some really incredible, wonderful people.
That is awesome. I'm glad to hear that everyone there is just kind-hearted, sweet. There's no bad blood, or there's no, like, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. Stay away from them. Just let them do their thing, and you just do your thing, and, like, we'll be good. When, like, everyone knows, you mean the guy who plays the guy who plays Gonzo is a jerk in life or something like that,
Yeah.
Or, like, the guy who plays Rizzo is really, like, that tough-hearted or something.
Honestly, they're all so sweet, and we're all human with faults, and we've all made mistakes, but at the very core, nobody was ever, at least, in my experiences with these people, and many people's experiences with each other, no one's ever been an outright, like, mean or ugly person. Through 40 years of being human, of course, you'll hear stories of mistakes that were made and things people have learned from. But aside from that, like, I can't fault anybody for being human. And everybody that I've met has been incredible and so sweet and so kind and so loving and so open and inviting, which is another thing that, there's within the puppeteer community, especially within, Sesame Street and the Muppets. One thing that, if you're ever around, you'll hear a lot is about the fact that they're very specific to bring in people who get along with everybody and will keep up that same energy that has been there from the beginning. That it's just a group of friends doing their best to put on a crazy, wacky, absurd show. If you're coming in to be the star, if you're coming in to cause problems, or, like, we're not going to.
If this is just your resume builder.
Yeah. Especially if it's something like that, we're not trying to put any oil in the water. We're trying to keep it as fun and happy and healthy and fruitful as we can get it.
They've got the formula. They're sticking to it. They're not changing a thing.
There's no need to. We figured it out.
Now, Buddy, you said earlier you grew up watching the Muppets. You grew up watching Sesame Street. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned from these shows?
Great question. What a great question. Being kind to people. That has always been a major factor in my life. Trying to make sure that I'm always as kind as I can. Sometimes you're not, and you regret it, but doing my best to be as kind as I can always be, and making sure that I own up to any mistakes that I make. Some other things. I think one of the biggest things between Sesame and the Muppets that it works both on camera and under the camera is collaboration and working well with others, which sort of just harkens back to that last point, which is that like it doesn't there's no one star, it's about the group, it's about the ensemble, it's about the team, and we as a team are trying to make this the best show that we can. It's not about any one person. I mean, sure, there are like standouts. Like obviously Elmo stands out, and he's a big part of the show. But Elmo wouldn't really be able to do much if he didn't have anybody to play off of, and he wouldn't have developed the personality that he did had it not been for the other puppeteers on set and the other characters on set. And as part of the success of Sesame Street, it's a team, and that's the success of the Muppets. They're the Muppets. That's their thing. Like their whole noun is this plural. It's Muppets. It's a whole team of people under and on camera, learning how to work together and collaborate and just be. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what you do. Do you have a good idea? Are you fun? Are you funny? Great. Okay. Cool. Is your whole act about throwing fish? Well, it's entertaining, so bring it on. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's all about the team and putting the best idea forward, no matter where it comes from. So I think, that's probably one of the biggest lessons.
That is so awesome. And it's so awesome that such a fun show is so important to this day. It brings such importance. Like, how much do you think Sesame Street is important to kids today? Which are the lessons that they bring on?
Can you even measure it? I mean, that's tough to say. The times and Sesame Street have changed since 1969. If you watch an episode from there, from the 60s, from the 70s, it's changed. It's changed quite a bit, but it's changed to reflect the world that we're in. And Sesame has always been a show where you can learn a good lesson, whether the lesson is reading or writing or just how to be a good person, how to be a good friend, how to learn how to trust people, learning how to just be a smart, kind, strong person. I'm not in research, I'm not one of the people that's at Sesame Workshop doing the research, but I know how Sesame Street affected me. And I know how it's affected some of the people around me and even people who raised me. And its impact is huge. It's huge because if nothing else, even if you're not learning the lessons or understanding the language, then you have friends, So the people on Sesame Street, the characters, Big Bird and Elmo and everybody, they're your friends, and they know you. Like you are their best friend before you even get to meet them. And that is special. That is very, very special. If nothing else, being able to be a friend to a kid who I've never even met before is really, really special. And I can't wait to meet whatever kid that may be who is like feels that they're very good friends with Wes or feels that they're very good friends with Tamir. Like no matter what, if that's who they if that's how they feel, then they've already met me, and I would love to be able to meet them in person. So I mean, friendship and all those things.
With that, have you ever thought of doing like Comic Cons or anything like that where you can meet those true fans, or do you do like any public appearances, anything along those lines?
I've never thought about it. I don't see that being a thing for me right now. Maybe pretty far out into the future. If my characters have any proper staying power, then possibly. But for now, I'm happy to be in the vacuum of the studio and having the beautiful puppeteer anonymity that we all get to have.
Absolutely,
Superman style.
Absolutely. One thing I love about Sesame Street, they're not afraid to go into the deep stuff. They're not afraid to talk about like situations like death. What happens if a loved one goes away for a little bit because they did something wrong? What happens if you meet someone and they're different from you, like they have autism, or but you're still curious, like you don't know what autism is, so here's an introduction to it. That's what I love most about Sesame Street. They're not afraid to explain, and they do it in such a heartfelt way with kids
Mhm. Mhm.
that you cannot, that even an adult who, that a kid who's 3 years old can understand that,
Yeah.
yeah, this person has autism, but they're just like me.
Yeah.
You know, they
Yeah.
just, they don't like loud noises, or, a bunch of other things that, that I can't list at the moment, but they're just like me. The biggest difference. And the one thing that I've actually reached out to Sesame Street in the past, and I'm hoping to continue this outreach, is I have a form of dwarfism called hypochondroplasia. Translation:
Oh,
I'm a little person. I would love it if Sesame Street was one day able to put a character with dwarfism on to help explain to kids that just because this kid's smaller than you, just because this guy over here is smaller than you, doesn't mean they're different from you,
that's a very good point. And
Mhm.
I think, yeah, I mean, Sesame is not afraid to go there. I think
Not at all.
maybe the question is, I'm not sure that that's specifically what's been on Sesame Workshop's mind at this moment, but
Mhm.
I can certainly bring it up and ask the question.
I
Um,
would love that, because
yeah.
I think with I'm the advocacy director for our local LPA, Low People of America, for our local
Mhm.
chapter here, and just it'd be so much easier, when we go into schools, when we go into, when we, like, if you and me were to walk on the street, and just, like, after, we'd say we get lunch, we walk down the street, and a mom and her son walk by, like her 5-year-old son walk by, you know, you can see the look in the child's eyes. You can see, like, I'm obviously the first little person they've ever seen before, so they're curious, just like your character on Sesame Street.
Mhm.
Like, they're always curious, they're always wondering, they're always asking questions, they're always
Yeah.
willing to, and kids nowadays, it's, they speak whatever comes to their mind.
Mhm.
So it's not just like you or me who's kind of like just keeps it in their head. I wonder what's going on with that person or something like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's always like, "Mommy, why is that boy so small?" I always get
Yeah.
humor out of the reaction from the parents. They always act like I'm gonna, like, lash out or something, because they
Yeah.
always put
Yeah.
that look on their face like, "Okay, time to go," you know?
Yeah. They do. You're not supposed to get everybody just quiet down.
Yeah,
Yeah, that sort of thing.
exactly, but at the
Um,
same time, we welcome the education just like Sesame Street.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's something. It's an interesting thing, and I'm wondering how that would play well with Muppets. But I'm sure we
Mhm,
could we could figure a way to do it. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things like with race, which is sort of
mhm,
uh, I'm not back in the forefront is not the correct word, but there's been sort of a spotlight on sort of the inequalities that people that are of different colors are experiencing, and there's been sort of a lack of tolerance for non-inclusivity and for lack of diversity. And so Sesame is just the sort of a everything is sort of worked out in this way that while that's in the spotlight, we're handling the situation as best we can, and that's part of Wes's and Tamira's mission is to like have start the conversation, is to introduce it. It's not exactly to solve racism. That's a bigger thing. But what we can do is what we can educate. We can educate children on what is race and why do some people look different than others. In the
mhm,
case of race, it's just melanin. Some of us have more melanin. Some of us are from different parts of the world and look a little bit different and have different cultures, and but we're all the same at our core. We're all just people.
mhm,
And that's the only difference. And what we can do is we can learn how to embrace all of the different colors that we are. It's a beautiful thing, and we should learn to do it. And not just colors, but we can even learn to embrace, not learn to embrace, but we can embrace all of the different sizes that we are.
mhm,
There are so many things that are still uh, stones that are left unturned that are not out of the realm of possibility to be happening.
Mhm.
But
And
that
Sesame
that
Street is not afraid to overturn those stones.
Sesame Street will do it. Sesame Street will do it, and because it's for the benefit of the children. I mean, that's part of what Sesame Street was created for. It was created to help educate and prepare the inner city youth for I think it was for kindergarten, to make sure that they had at least some sort of intro to grammar and spelling and reading before they actually even started school, because they were falling behind, and that's what Sesame Street was for. And so it's only fitting that it would be the continuation to then now have the more, because before the characters were created sort of as a rainbow of colors of the red and the orange and the yellow to sort of represent anybody. It doesn't matter what race or what color you are, you can identify with anybody, which is still the truth. But now we're talking more explicitly about it and introducing characters like Chiyoung, who are, of a specific race or ethnicity. Characters like Tamir, characters like Wes, characters like Gabrielle. And so that's part of the mission right now, is to have that explicit conversation, show that it's okay, and let kids understand that, like, this is, some people just look different, and that's fine, and a lot of it is for the parents too,
Mhm.
to understand that it's okay for us to look different. We can all still be friends, and even if you don't like, I don't care who identifies with Wes or Tamir. I don't care if you're a little boy or a little girl, or if you're black, or if you're brown, or if you're white, or if you're from Korea. I don't, if you identify and you feel like you have some sort of a connection to any one of the characters, then that's how you should feel. It shouldn't be just about that. And so that's why I love exactly what Sesame Street is doing, because it's starting that conversation that parents don't really know how to start yet.
Mhm.
It opens it up for the kids to ask questions so they can actually talk about it. And it's
Mhm.
beautiful and inspiring, and I hope we get to cover even more topics soon.
Mhm. I love it. I saw even last month, even in or even in June, I saw a poster on their Facebook page that said, "This is everybody's street,"
Yeah, it's true.
and that's the example of what it is. It's everybody's street.
Hmm. You're
So
100% right.
we just talked about a bunch of lessons that Sesame Street has taught. What are some of the best lessons you've personally seen through the show?
Best lessons I've seen through the show. Hmm. Um, you know, I think some of the best lessons have been not tiptoeing around a topic. I love the fact that Sesame Street has found the language to just speak about things, frankly, honestly, and in a way that's easy to digest. And I think the first video that Wes ever did is a great example of that. Just talking about, like, well, why is your skin a different color than his skin? Oh, it's because of melanin. Oh, okay. And that was it. It's for some reason it shocked me that it could be that easy to describe. And since then, it's sort of just enlightened me to this idea that, like, it is just as simple as that. So many things are a lot more simple than they seem. And I am so grateful for that moment and for that script and for all of the scripts that I've gotten to do, because they've been a great example of, it can be a delicate conversation, but the reason behind it, the reason for your skin color, the reason that we celebrate this and you celebrate that, is not actually that complicated. We do it because of this. Oh, we do it because of this. Oh, cool. Okay, then let's have fun. Let's just have fun together.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it can be so simple,
It
and
truly can.
I love that message, and it gives me a lot of hope.
It can be so simple, and it can be taken a long way. It can be taken into adulthood. That's why I said, if it's easy for someone to understand disabilities, if it's easy for someone to understand, you know, that this person's a different race than you. And that's it. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all that's different about them. They can take it into adulthood knowing that that person's just like me. So what?
Hmm.
You know? So
Yeah.
what? They have autism. They're still a human.
Yeah, it's crazy because when you learn it as a child, you can you can normalize it in your head. I mean, that's all kids do is somebody told me a story of they were talking to their little girl, and there was a scene in a movie, I guess, that had come on, and it was two women or two men or something, and they like kissed and said goodbye or something because they were a couple in the movie.
Mhm.
And just sort of as an experiment, the mother or whoever was watching this little girl said like, "Oh well, what do you think about that?" And she was like, "Think about what?" It's like, "There's two boys kissing." She was like, "Oh well, some boys love each other like that." So, and that was it. Like there wasn't any like hatred, there wasn't any like bigotry. It wasn't like ew. It was just like, oh yeah, some boys love each other, and it just shows how simple it can be for a child. It really just is that easy. There's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with it. There's nothing malicious about it. It's just like, yeah, that's a thing. I'm also wearing shoes. I'm gonna finish the movie now.
Yeah,
It's that simple.
it is. And that's why I'm always saying, like, that stuff can be learned. Hate can also be learned. I don't think a child ever comes out of the womb going, and their first words are, I hate you, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
It's all
yeah.
learned. So you're right. It can go in either direction. It can go in
It
either
can.
way.
And
So
why not go the direction of love?
exactly. Why not go in the positive direction?
The direction of tolerance.
Hmm. I also love Sesame Street so much because of all that it's taught. Like you said, it's all that it's done. You just reminded me of a story that I had. My grandmother worked with this one gentleman, and he was from a different country, but his English was on point. It was everything. He didn't struggle or anything. And my grandmother asked him, she's like, "How did you pick up English so fast? Like, how did you learn it?" And he said, "I watched Sesame Street growing up, and I was able to keep up with it. It was the one
Yeah,
show that I could keep up, that I felt like I was on pace. Like there was no like I was being rushed to understand. I kept up with it, and that's how I picked
yeah,
it up."
yeah.
Mhm.
Sesame Street is a special. It's a special thing.
Mhm.
It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest honor of my life to be working with people and with characters and on a set that all quite literally belongs in a museum. And there are
Mhm.
pieces of it in different museums around the world or around the country that I've seen.
Mhm.
So it's affected so many people in so many ways, and I'm so grateful.
Mhm. I think Fozzie's now at the National Comedy Center.
Is he really?
I think so, or he was there at one point.
That's so
So
funny. I would love to see that.
yes. So, buddy, I got two more questions for you before we close out this episode. The
Go
first
for it.
one is brought to us by our buddy Jonas Kane at hashtag Positivity. He wants to know, in your own words, what does it mean to be someone's buddy?
What does it mean to be someone's buddy? I've got a few buddies in my life, and I think it just means, you knowing that that they're there for you, no matter the situation, no judgment, no qualms. Just I am here to help you. I'm here to be your buddy. I'm here to be the person that you need to listen to. I'd love for people to know that I'm their buddy and I'm here to listen and I'm here to help in any way that I can. Um, I'm here to help you not feel alone. And I love when I have buddies that help me feel that way, that help me feel special and cared about and listened to and are there to like make me laugh and just help me smile on a bad day. Um, there's a lot I think that comes with the title of buddy, but none of it is bad or a burden. It's all some beautiful responsibilities.
That is awesome. And we finally come to what I call the ultimate Buddycast buddy question. You
Oh
ready for
boy,
this one?
I hope so.
For anyone out there who wants to be a puppeteer, what's your advice to them?
For anyone out there who wants to be a voter, what's your advice to them? For one thing, part of it is like getting to Carnegie Hall. It's just to practice, practice, practice. That's one thing. Um, the other is to just be a good person. part of being a puppeteer is being a buddy to all of the other puppeteers around you. So just be a good person and practice acting. Don't just practice puppetry. Practice manipulation as much as you can, but also practice acting, practice character work, practice manipulating your voice, practice music, practice singing, maybe practice an instrument or two. Really just expand your range as much as you can, and have it. If you have a drive for puppetry, then keep that drive for puppetry, because you'll do it no matter what. But expand your horizons past it, because a lot of puppetry can really be helped by if you have previous onstage experience. When you're voicing your character, you learn how to project and how to keep that character alive, and how to make sure that you are using the range of your voice to its fullest extent when you have to be really big as a puppet, because you can only be so big as a character. Your voice can be even bigger and translate that emotion even more. There's a benefit to being able to be on stage. There's a benefit to learning how to act, because you can take those smaller moments and really become the character. You're not doing an impression, but to be emotional while doing a Grover voice can really feel silly. But if you're a really good actor, then nothing feels silly about it, and everybody believes it. Everybody buys into it. So that would be my advice. Practice puppetry as much as you can, and practice everything else you want to do as much as you can, because it all comes together somehow.
Love it. I have one more question. I lied. I have one more question. What does Wes think of Buddycast?
Wes is just kind of jealous that Bradley got to be on it and not me. But maybe one day we can make it happen, because you seem like a really good buddy, Nick.
That would be awesome. We should do that. That's a great idea. If we get permission, we should absolutely do that.
So we can figure it out, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, buddy, thank you so much for being here on Buddycast. It was a pleasure. Stick around for a minute. We'll chat for a little bit afterwards. But thank you for everything today. It was a great episode. I learned so much. I'm a big fan of the Muppets and Sesame Street, so this was a huge honor.
Me too.
Yes.
Thank you. It was an honor for me too. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
For all my buddies out there, this is my buddy Bradley Freeman. And buddy, I got one favor to ask you before we close out this episode.
Yes.
Whatever you do today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, go be someone's buddy. Can you do that for me?
I can do that for sure.
Solid. Yeah. We'll catch you all next time here on everybody's favorite show, Buddycast.
Well, the days are going fast, buddy, we've got to make them last, buddy, before they've all gone past, buddy, tune in to Buddycast. But don't feel none, it can make it, buddy, here on Buddycast.